Well, over R1 billion in damage and 70 dead bodies. That's the extent of the devastating floods and the devastation that it's caused that struck Durban over the Easter weekend. Now, many people have been displaced and infrastructure is yet to be repaired. So for more on that, our reporter Mawande Keso joins me now from the city. Mawande, I mean, it's a huge bill that is going to be incurred by the province in itself, over R1.1 billion in infrastructure development. Has government come forward with indications of when this work and rebuilding process will actually start?
Good afternoon, Faith. Well, government has said that the work will start immediately, but did not go in depth in terms of this is where we're going to start and this is where we're going to end. The main thing is that assessments are still ongoing. So in terms of damage, structural damage, they're still looking to see as to how many people have had their structures demolished or have unfortunately had damage to their structures. Because, Faith, yes, we had about 253 or 235 homes, rather, that were damaged. But you'll find that some people's homes did not completely collapse. Parts of their houses or structural or parts of their structures were damaged in terms of the flood. Some people just had water seeping in through their homes and damaging their furniture. So they still need to consolidate all of those numbers. But in the meantime, there are those people who've given forth that information. But it's difficult for government to say in terms of those structures as to when they'll be fixed, because you still have issues around some of those homes were built in areas that were against bylaws. So in that situation, they have to look at, one, does that home need to be demolished completely? And if there was partial damage, can that home be rebuilt or refurbished? So they need to look at all of those things. In some areas, people have to be relocated completely. I know in one case in Umlazi L section, there is a resident there whom they found that they need to relocate them altogether. Now, his situation was much easier to manage because he had already applied for an RDP house. So the process was much quicker for him. Whether or not he's moved yet, it's not clear. But I got word that for him, it's really simple because he was already on the roll and he was due to receive a house. So now that this incident has occurred, they're going to move him completely. There are a number of structures in that area that are problematic. They said that people have built on what you call a floodplain. So those houses are prone to flooding. In that instance, they need to find areas in which they can relocate them. Now, when I spoke earlier on, last week actually, to the acting premier, it spoke of a program called Sukuma Sake, which is a government housing program. Now, a lot of those that have lost homes, those homes will be rebuilt under that program. But the 1.1 billion is just a preliminary number. Those figures could increase, as I had indicated, that assessments are still ongoing.
Now, Mawande, this quite reminds me of a conversation with the Geoscience Council around having to have foresight, especially when it comes to natural disasters in South Africa. It's not necessarily the top of the agenda where government is concerned. However, the circumstances around climate change have now put pressure on government, especially to start looking at the areas which are most conducive for building and infrastructure development versus the areas that are actually not conducive and where flooding, actually, as you had mentioned, the floodplain actually does take place. So in that regard, when, houses need to be moved to different areas, are residents willing to participate in this? Are they willing to make the relocation to move? Because it's literally moving everything that they know and their families to a different location to start really afresh.
Well, Fred, that is the problem that government is currently facing. It's become evident that some people do not want to move. In a simple situation, Faith, some people had to be relocated because they needed to evacuate, right? And there were a number of people that said, no, I do not want to move. Some people didn't even go to the temporary shelters that were provided, which are the halts. They didn't want to go. They wanted to stay in their homes. Whether or not they were safe or they were not safe, they were not really interested in that. So that is a problem that government is facing at this point in time. People do not want to leave their homes. They've built their whole lives in those areas. They've grown up there. They have kids. They have families. But to just touch on the issue that you're putting forth, Faith, I was reading one of the articles that had said that government learned nothing from the 2017 floods, if I'm not mistaken, that took place in Durban again, where roads were flooded, houses were flooded as well. Like a number of issues arose which are similar to what we saw this time around. However, this time around the damage was much more. I also spoke to some students who were studying geology and other studies, and they informed me that they once did a research paper, Faith, talking about flood-prone areas in Durban, and they found that there's quite a number of areas in Durban as in our townships as well that are prone to flooding. But as to how far those studies went, it's not really clear. But one thing that is clear for me personally is the fact that there are areas that are known that they are prone to flooding. But what is being done to avert a catastrophe? It could be a situation that people will only wake up now that the damage has been done, where you've lost 70 lives and 235 people have been displaced. But it is not information that is unknown, Faith. As you've rightfully said, we know that global warming is an issue. We know that climate change is real, and these are really the effects of it. A lot of people were pointing fingers at government and saying this is as a result of issues relating to stormwater drainage systems being inactive and not working effectively. Now, government says we cannot put the blame on solely government in the sense of that infrastructure. It is also an act of nature. However, we can say that those issues may exacerbate the challenges that we faced with regards to the floods. But we cannot also just say that is as a result of that. However, the management of it, if we've had floods previously, why are we still having a situation where stormwater drainage systems are not attended to in a fast manner? Because you already know if floods do come and we have that issue, what will happen then? We also have weather warnings, Faith, where warnings are given to us prior to the actual floods occurring. But all of those things really need to be looked at to ensure that we avert these things.
Well, it's definitely a very expensive lesson, I think, that on South Africa's behalf. But Mawande, we're going to leave our conversation there. Mawande Keswa out in Durban giving us the latest, where it looks like the costs are being tallied for the effects of the ongoing floods that were happening in KZN.